Hi, good evening, everybody. Devon Dames here again with another week of real estate woes during this new market. And today is March 13th. And what we're going to have on our show today is John Lynn has decided to bless us with giving us a lesson in understanding the pricing and how to get your projects going with understanding your numbers. So without further ado, let's take it away, John.
Can you give me host rights to screen share?
Yeah, I did. Your co-host. Select to the bottom.
All right, I see it. Thank you.
Yeah, screen share.
And all right. Can everybody see that on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So one of the things I've noticed at groups is people want to get started. Catherine, and where are you in your journey for investing?
Frustration. Is that the
But I mean, have you done an investment yet? Are you looking at an investment?
So I used to own a home in Denver, Colorado, but unfortunately I sold that home. I didn't know any better at that time to just hold on to it and rent it out. So I'm back at zero, trying to invest in a multi-family property now.
Okay, and how about you? Am I saying your name is Kwesi? How do I say your name? You could unmute and just tell me where you're at.
It's Kwesi. I'm currently in Tampa, Florida. Right now, I'm not anywhere near to investing, just observing for educational purposes. Thank you for having me.
All right. Have you done any yet, though?
I mean, I haven't personally. I know of real estate investing. Currently, I'm in my dad's rental property. He needs me out so that he can continue renting. I mean, that's as much as I know.
All right. If I blow through a slide and you guys want me to go back, feel free to unmute and let me know, okay?
Will do.
All right. So first of all, I'm not a lawyer or CPA or real estate agent or a professional making an offer. I just want to tell you guys, I'm just trying to educate you on understanding numbers and the importance of knowing numbers for any investment. And there's so many areas of it. We're going to focus on just hypotheticals of a quick market sample for something that I was looking at for my girlfriend or for both of us to do recently so that you guys can kind of grasp how numbers fit in. Okay. All of us are here because we're chasing an investment. And although the numbers are different for each avenue, for each, space, it applies the same. There are, the number system applies to everything, with an upfront cost, a hold cost, a resale cost, and capitalization or ROI, and we'll go through that. So this is an article, and I'm more than glad to post it, but what this article explains is a different set of numbers. These are judging a property if they meet qualification for investing. And I will post this article for everybody, but I'm going to warn you, in today's market, I challenge you to find one that fits any of these numbers. Okay. Here's what the article will go into. There's not many rental properties that are going to give you 15 to 20 grand in rent and only cost 100 or 125 grand in this market. And you're probably looking at a tear down from a fire, to be honest with you. It's very hard, but I will post this article for you guys who want to look at, factors that they have for large buying, things like that, when you're really getting going as a professional. But for us, I want to focus on where you are starting out and things that have helped me and helped other people that I have seen in this space. Okay. One thing is, whatever you do, everything you do should have a plan. From investing from your job, from investing in 401ks, Social Security, rentals, NFT stocks, they should all have a plan on how they fit together and what order you should put them in. And you should really think about what you want to put first, how you do it. And I'm going to give you a suggestion. But one thing I do to always keep myself honest is I fall back on the triple E's, which was a professional thing for me. I'm always trying to educate myself, learn how things work. I'm always trying to design and act. The best plan in the world is useless if you don't act. And the last thing is I'm always trying to hone the skills and edit or amend them if they don't. I'm trying to enforce myself to keep good habits And if things fail or I'm unable to achieve them or do them, I go back to the drawing board, okay? So it's very important to learn. It's very important to come up with a plan and to actually do something. And then it's very important to go back and see what works, what doesn't, where you need help. All right.
John,
Yep.
before you move on, and when you talk about the plan, and because there's so many moving pieces and putting the plan together, do you have some type of financial advisor or some kind
I
of?
have a CPA, a lawyer. I got rid of my traditional financial advisor. I do it myself now, but I will show you later how to draw up a plan if you want. Maybe that's something you could bring to the group.
Okay.
But I work holistically. So everything you see on the screen, except Forex, I haven't gotten into the space yet. Everything on the screen is part of my plan right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll talk about that more later, but let's start with beginning with a property so we can get to the numbers. And I would love to talk to you more about that. Maybe sit down at a group and we can make that like planning a strategy.
Sounds good.
Yeah. The very first step most people do is to buy a home and convert it. And the reason they do that, or even to use it for their benefit, for example, the best financing you'll ever get is on your first home. If you do a 10, 15, or 20 year, you get a better rate, but most people do a 30-year rate. And the rate is lower if you're going to occupy the home and escrow the taxes. You just get a better rate than an investment property. And I believe it's 1 year you have to live in for Fannie Mae conforming guidelines. We'll go over those in a minute. But number one, it provides you with a place to live. Number two, if you stay there for 2 years, and I believe it's even in the aggregate, meaning if you only stay one, you get half the discount. But if you buy a $150,000 home, stay there 2 years, and you sell it, up to $250,000 of that gain is tax-free. Again, I'm not an accountant, you can go to one, but you don't pay taxes on your profit. The other thing, it allows you more time to repair. If you're living there and it provides a roof over your head and you're paying it in lieu of rent.
Just an interjection here for a second. It's $250 if you're single, $500 if you're married.
Yeah, $500 if you're married. Don't say that word in front of my girlfriend. But yeah, $500 if you're married. And it allows you more time. This is my first flip. I did 3 years and 8 months in a home. Okay. I paid $159 for it and I sold it for $240. And I took full capital gains exemption, no taxes on it, because I lived there more than 2 years. And I took over a year doing some of my projects so I could do them myself. It allows you time to save for the next deal. Also, you could take a HELOC or refi that house and get cash out to do the next deal. So there's a huge benefit to having a place to live and having your own home. And most people that I've met, this is the avenue they go. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell you is remember, there are rules when converting this. There are rules for borrowing. There are all kinds of rules involved in this. So it's something you have to prepare, study, and really know. It's not just a simple fly through, but it is a very good first step for people looking to get into the space. All right. For me, I think of money for a metaphor like gardening. Okay. Planting is how I acquire the seed. Okay. That's my investment, my initial money, my initial investment. Tending the garden is managing it. Reaping it is capturing the rewards, and you're always looking for sustainability. In other words, reinvesting, so the investment gives you fruit every year. You don't want to chop down the tree. You want to pick the fruit each year and keep managing it so that it gives every year. And that's just a mindset I put myself in, okay? The goal is to turn assets to wealth. When I think of wealth, I think of abundance of a resource, okay? And the most important thing, and I put that quote from Ben Franklin, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. A little bit of planning and a little bit of research up front is remarkable, you know, to avoiding problems and to benefiting, especially, you know, learning to understand, okay? And planning will not eliminate all your problems, but if it will eliminate 5 to 7 of 10 problems and you can really focus on the last 3, you're doing well. All right. There is a price to doing business. If you tell me stocks, precious metals, real estate, NFTs, I don't care if you're flipping cars. I'm going to show you, or I can tell you what your price of doing business is, okay? And at the end, there's Uncle Sam, who wants his cut, and that's tax, depreciation, recapture, penalties, And that excludes 1031 exchanges and Roths, which we can talk about those more later, but just understand this. I don't care, whatever you do, there's a price to doing it, okay? So planning and doing it well makes a difference. All right, our goal for those of you starting out is the ROI, the return on investment, okay? We know there's a cost to buy, hold, and sell an asset, transaction, maintenance fees. We know that there's a return. ROI is a term you can memorize, return on profit. It's the money from interest, dividends, rent, sale, et cetera, of an asset, of anything you hold. Gross is before taxes and depreciation recapture. Net is what you actually get to keep, okay? And again, it's different for 1031s and Roth IRAs. I don't know if I need to tell you guys this, but I put this in because I have a friend, he puts everything in a savings account and he says, I won't buy a house in case the market goes down. We talked about this at the beginning. Here's one question I want to ask you, Catherine. With the way inflation is going up, what correction could this market give that could possibly hurt the housing market right now? It's gone up so high that if there's a 20% reduction correction tomorrow, do you still think housing got hurt?
Absolutely.
When we think about money, the real cost is lost through inflation. You could buy a safe and alarm for your house. It's negligible to buy a CD or savings, open a savings account, right? But let's look at what time does. Let's put money in a savings account. And let's say we could get 2% interest, which was unheard of for the last 8, 10 years. But at 2% on the left here, this is the money that I paid for the house I'm in now, $226,245 for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. And I paid that in 2016, okay? If I had to put that same cash in a CD or savings account paying 2%, today, 5 years later, it would be $249,000. My home, and I just found out 410 is not accurate. It was off a comp from 3 weeks ago. It's now 435 because another one just sold. Okay. So in 5.5 years, the appreciation of my home is 12.62, 13.5%. Now, even if you say, well, that's ridiculous, that's COVID, everything else, go to the right and look at this chart. Even if it was only 5%, which is 2.5 times the rate of CD or interest, it would be $288,752. So if you put enough money to buy a can of Coke away 5 years ago and took it out today, you couldn't buy a can of Coke. Mm-hmm. So to understand, that's why we invest, okay? It's a hedge against inflation and it's seeking growth beyond inflation. That's the point of investing as a whole, okay? Let's begin with the numbers. Again, just so you know, I consider myself from beginner to intermediate stage investing, okay? I've personally done 2 homes, 2 condominiums, and I've been involved in 3 other active flips, but it's really a side project for me. And I do dabble with precious metal stocks, but I'm not in Forex and I'm not at all like a day trader or advanced person, but I do grasp the real estate, market pretty well, okay? My girlfriend and I sold a property. We took the money from that. We didn't 1031 exchange, but we were talking about getting another rental property if we couldn't get a house. So here's what's important for all of you. You need to picture a vision for yourself. I don't care what the 1%, 2%, 50% rule is. You need to understand what you need for you that you feel is a viable investment to work. So my girlfriend said, look, we already own a house. We already own another condo. We sold another condo. We did another house flip. She goes, I'd like to look at a townhome or a condo so that 5 years from now we can sell it, or if we sell our house, we can move in it and travel more. And she doesn't want to worry about the roof and exterior maintenance. She's willing to pay an HOA to take care of that for her, okay? But the thing she wanted was a dedicated driveway or garage. She wanted a private yard area, at least 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, somewhere between 12 to 1,800 square feet, and something she can convert, or we could convert to a primary later. Or if she was sick of me, she could, when the tenant left, go make it her own. But the point is, these were her desires, not absolute, but this is what she was looking for in a potential property. And here it is, literally 3.5 miles from us. And it's on the same street as our former condo we sold. This is a townhome that goes for $262,500. It's 2 floors. It's 2.5 bathrooms. Can everybody, is it just my screen that has the cameras on it, or can everybody see?
No, I was able to see the PowerPoint on my full
Okay.
screen.
All right, good. So,
Were you
it's
able to see it, Catherine?
Yeah, I can see it.
okay, so it's mixed concrete block, wood frame. The HOA is a bit high, but what we liked was it covered some exterior maintenance, roof. It had a community pool, and it also covered internet and TV, which we don't care as a rental, but you know. Anyway, what I did was I looked at this and it met 90% of our needs. Now I'm going to tell you right now, that price 262.5 will not make any of those 1 or 2% or 70% rules. Okay. This is a more modern construction. I think it's 7 years old, but for her, it meets her needs. So the question becomes, number one, is it profitable? And number two, is it profitable enough to turn and convert to a rental property? So we looked at this and, you know, it met a lot of her personal goals and my goals that I looked at. Okay. And remember too, that the POAs, HOAs, all those mean are associations. They're different for every property you look at. Maybe it has an association, maybe it doesn't. And what they cover, you have to ask them, because I've seen townhomes that cover nothing and I've seen townhomes that cover everything. But for us, this was a viable property, okay? What's most important was the 3 most recent sales in there were between 250 and 265 for in-kind properties in the same complex, so it was priced right. And just to let you know, this went in less than a day, a few hours, okay? We didn't buy it, but it went very quickly. So here's where we want to get into some numbers for you, okay? When you're buying a property, the most important thing is you're going to negotiate a price. In this market, you're going to be dragged along by sled dogs, okay, to the price. But I'm not counting any discounts. You can work with professionals. That'll come at a later time. But for most things, unless you're buying a new home, you do not pay real estate commission, anything else as a buyer. It's normally paid by the seller. So 262.5 was the price. If you're doing a conventional mortgage, meaning you don't want to pay mortgage insurance, you want to pay 20% down, you want to borrow 80%, say on a 30-year loan, this is what you'll end up with for numbers. You're paying $52,500 for the down payment. But what you have to remember is there's a couple of things you have to factor in. We factored in $8,500 for the rehab costs, which were a little high. It was only 7 years old, but we noticed it had contractor carpeting in the upstairs, and that's got a 5-year life. And it, you know, in places like that, you know, especially almost 10 years, we were going to upgrade it to vinyl plank. And because it's a durable product that you could easily get 5 to 15 years out of, no problem. And it would also help in the resale, you know, as an upgrade in the home. And, you know, I factored in a little bit of extra, figuring maybe there's an appliance or something that has to be done, or even, you know, some maintenance to the air conditioning. But the closing costs, we factor at 3%, but truthfully, it could be 4, it could be 2.5. You never know what it is. And that's why we you know, we can go over running those numbers, but here's what I want you to know. Just because you're putting down 20% doesn't mean you don't need another 15 or 16 grand in the deal, because you've got to meet the closing costs and you've got to meet your rehab costs in order to get into this property. So we looked at this property and we said, we need almost 69,000 to get into this property, which we had money from a previous deal. And this would avoid PMI and be a conventional loan. A conventional conforming loan, all it means is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac are a private and government partnership to buy mortgages. And they put out rules in order for the mortgages to be bought by them or serviced through them. They have to conform to their rules. That's all it means, okay? And that's just rules to protect against, you know, loan defaults, okay? It has to do with credit, it has to do with how much money you put down, and there's all kinds of rules. But here we were, 68,875. Our next set of numbers is carrying a property. And I don't want you guys to confuse carrying with holding. Carrying a property is when you're carrying all the bills because you're rehabbing it, or you're listing it for rent, or you're fixing it for resale, and you don't have anybody in there yet. So for us, the mortgage, by the way, may start in 2 weeks. It may start in 6 weeks, whenever the servicing goes through. But here is where this magic PITI or PITIH comes from. PITI stands for P&I is your principal and interest. That's your mortgage payment. Part of it's the principal, part of it's the interest. The T is taxes, the I is insurance, and the H, HOA, property owner association, condo, some loan people will want it, some lenders will demand it, some lenders won't even pay attention to it. And in this case, you're paying utilities. Here we would be paying water and electric while we're rehabbing the property. So as you can see, it cost us $1,674 a month to carry that without a renter in there. And it's important because these carrying costs have to factor in, because up here we need 69 grand, down here we need another 1,600 a month. So the way I look at it is now we go into hold. Maybe it's been 1 to 2 months, 6 weeks, and now we go into the hold. Now, where did I get the rent? I went on MLS and I pulled the last 2 rental comps within the last 30 days. They were both 1,900. There's your price. When you find 2 or 3 rental comps that look alike, you've got your comps for what to rent it for. So these rent for 1,900. So now all I did was take all the costs we were paying before, except if you notice, we're no longer going to pay utilities because we're going to make the tenant pay those, and that'll be part of the lease. And the other thing that's in there is vacancy and future maintenance. Now let's talk about that for a minute. You're not actually paying that every month, but that's part of your budget. And the recommendation for vacancy is about 10% of your rent. And what does that mean? Why are we paying vacancy? Well, that means when your tenant leaves, you know, in the old days, you could list it for rent, show it with notice to your tenant, but post-COVID, people don't want people in their apartment. It's harder to do it. It's more of a liability. It's an issue. So when your tenant moves out, you may go 2 to 6 weeks without a tenant for turnover. Now, in this market, they move in pretty close, but a lot of times they want to move in when their rent's over. So you might be 3 or 4 weeks without a tenant and you're back to carrying it. So they recommend factoring in a vacancy cost of 10% on average so that you don't count on making that money, okay? And it also covers that you'll have to pay a real estate agent 1.5 months rent to rent the property if you hire a real estate agent. And now for future maintenance, we only did $50 because it's only 7 years old and we were putting 8-9 grand to rehab the property. So we were confident that we could get a 5 to 7, term of life out of it with maybe 1 appliance a year or whatever, if that. But that leaves us with a gross profit of $111 a month. And for those of you saying, what? I'm only making $111 a month. Think about this. Someone else is buying you your investment property. Okay, someone else is paying the bills and buying it for you. And if you have no vacancy and you have no maintenance that you can see right now, that's going to go up to $350 a month that you're making. And that's the gross, but I'll tell you something else. You can talk to your CPA, you get to depreciate investment property, which means they take the value of it, they divide it by 27 years. So if it's 270 grand, 10,000 a year is depreciated. So your first 10,000 is depreciated. Now you have to pay that back during tax time under a recapture. But while you're making this money, it's basically free and clear for the most part. With us, we put it back in the mortgage to pay down the mortgage and get a bigger return at the end. But you might need the money, want the money as you build. So it's up to you. But as you look at this, it's real important to notice you're renting for $1,900 and you're taking home $100 to $350. And that's considered good for some people. And for me, it's not bad. But let's look at the next thing. 5 years later, we sell this property, okay? We do an annual inflation of 5%. That's artificial, but I'm just throwing that in there. If it were to go up on average 5% a year, we could sell it for $335, okay? And don't worry about these numbers. I'm gonna tie them all up for you at the end, so you don't have to remember them. Now, if you don't have a partnership with a real estate agent, you end up paying full 6%, although there's 5% and other things out there, but potentially you could pay 6%, which means you have to pay 20 grand because now you're the seller, okay? 3% closing costs, it's gonna be lower, but I just put a full 3% to be careful. And then the mortgage payoff, you would have owed $189 according to the amortization table after 5 years. So your gross profit, that's not your net, what you take home. Your gross profit is $114,893, okay? But now let's look at how these numbers tie up, okay? On the bottom of your screen, all you're seeing is the numbers we just went over. The purchase, the carry, the hold, and the sale. Those are just all the same numbers we just talked about in the last 4 screens. Now we take this up to the top left in blue. We take our 114,000, that's where we got on the bottom right of the green. That's what we made from the sale. We'll add back in 5 years of rent net profit, which was $6,666, okay? And that's what we made. We made $114,893 on the sale after 5 years. We made $6,700 in rent. And now we're going to subtract the cash we put in to close. We're going to subtract the cash we carried the property with. And we're going to look at what is left over for a gross profit. After 5 years, you made just under 50 grand. Okay. We're going to zap 10% taxes for depreciation. And that means your net from this is about $44,000. Okay. So we go over to the right in green. Our total cash out of pocket on year 1 was 72 grand. That was our 20% down. That was our closing costs. That was our rehab. And that was our 2 months hold. Over 5 years, we netted $44,397. That is a capitalization rate or an annual percentage rate of 10%, 10.06. That means had we not bought this property and we stuck it into a bank account, it would have had to pay us 10.06% to make the same amount of money. Now we automatically know we're looking at a 1 to 2% CDs. As inflation goes up, it should come up, but we're 5 to 10 times the rate of savings interest, 5 to 10 times the rate of CD interest. This is why people invest, okay? And this isn't perfect. Some major repair could have happened. The roof could have blown off, an assessment could have come along. But fundamentally, you can see that investing in real estate is going to keep with inflation, unless it gets crazy now in double digits, but it's going to keep over time. An investment is going to beat inflation, not only keep your money worth something, but it's going to grow your money as you go, okay? And there are other tax advantages to beat this, but this screen right here should show you that just preparing some of these numbers and learning about a budget, it seems difficult, but a lot of them are the same numbers over again. You look at the middle bottom of the screen, I just calculate the carry and the hold. The only difference is on the hold, there's rental income and vacancy and maintenance. It's the same numbers. So let's think about what this means to you. If you look at this money and you say, okay, I made 44 grand, profit, I made 10% interest. The question you have to ask personally is, what time and labor are you putting into this? Up front, there's a lot. Maybe at the end, there's some. And of course, for 5 years, there's rental oversight. Somebody's got to pick up the phone, deal with the real estate agents, re-rent it, maybe go call a plumber if something went wrong or fix it yourself. The question becomes, could I invest elsewhere for more or less reward, more or less time or work? Did these numbers meet your expectation? Like when it's done, I can tell you on the condo we did for 3 years and 8 months up the street, we made more than this off a $100,000 condo. But the market was really good. We got out. You never know what the market's going to do, okay? And you might decide to hold and rent it if the market doesn't do phenomenal. But here's the question. Did these numbers meet your expectations? Not the 70% rule or the 1 or 2%. When you sat down and you invested, did you fall short and come in at 7%? Did you do 14% because you did even better? You have to ask yourself, was this worth your time for what you put in? Because you can also flip it around and say, do I enjoy this space? Is it something I'd like to do? Because let me ask you, if I divide that gain, the average yearly gain is $8,900. Divide that by 12 months, it's $740 a month. Divide that by 52 weeks, it's $170 a week. I know people that can get a part-time job making $170 a week for 2 or 3 days a week, and they don't have to worry about a down payment. They don't have to worry about an investment. They just go in 3-4 days a week and do their part-time job and they're happy. So the question is, what makes you happy? What's your advantage? And does this work for you? Now, on the flip side of this, you're putting in very little hours. Up front, you might doing some work, but honestly, you're putting in a lot less hours, but you're accepting a lot more responsibility. So that's just something to think about what it means for you personally. And there are ways to save in buying a property. For example, you could buy a distressed property, foreclosure, short sale. You could pay cash if you didn't need the loan. You could buy a property with no HOA or condo association. You could change locations to an urban or suburban area. You could buy direct or negotiate through wholesale. There's a lot of ways to beat the deal. But the question is, what if you find a property that's a lot cheaper? I guarantee you it's probably going to need a lot more work. So there's usually a trade-off there. But there's questions, there are always ways to save. This is just a typical buy that we were considering, okay? And here's what I want to give you for takeaways. Takeaway number one, whatever you're going to invest in, you need to learn your space. Okay, remember, educate, engineer, enforce, vocabulary. When you're talking rental properties and getting a loan, they're going to throw things at you like GRM, ROI, ARV, DTI, okay? They're going to throw it at you, what's your, this, what's your that. If you're doing gold, they're going to talk premium, spot. If you're doing stocks, they're going to talk margin, calls, puts. You really need to get involved in your space. You don't have to learn everything, but you have to learn enough that you know what you're doing. The second thing is you have to really understand the costs that are in your space, okay? There are costs when you buy an investment, costs to hold an investment, costs to sell an investment. They're an asset. And you have to be able to calculate these and the tax liabilities because you need to be able to make decisions that save you money. If you had made that money on that property, and we go back here, if instead of paying this 10% tax, you could have taken that 50 grand, put it into your next property and paid no tax until you sold the next property. That's a tax strategy. It's called a 1031 exchange. Those are reasons why you need to learn the vocabulary, you need to learn the costs, okay? And the last thing is you need to plan. In life, you're either planning or crisis managing, okay? Most successful people don't get lucky. They work hard, okay? They know their numbers. Most good business people know their numbers, all right? And this is a way for you to start out with just a personal home, learn those numbers, and then be able to apply them as you go for your next property, whether you flip, hold, or just take the money out for a profit. And a takeaway number two for you, partnerships. Serious people will not partner with you if you can't bring something to the deal, okay? When you ask for money, they will vet you. And this comes down to information about yourself, your credit worthiness or experience, and information about the deal, the numbers. You will often hear people in the business say, the numbers need to make sense, so the deal needs to make sense. And this is true, especially for private and hard money. They're gonna wanna know real numbers, okay? And if you want their money and you need to partner, they're gonna need to know this stuff. And something else I want you to know, you're your own best advocate, and often you're your only advocate. You go to a used car dealer, they want to sell you that car and make their profit. They don't care if you can make the car payment. And lenders, they care that your credit qualifies so that you can conform so they can sell the loan, but they expect you to be responsible for getting your credit to them, getting your documents to them. They'll help you with the loan, but there's responsibility for you, and you're supposed to get the best deal. I know mortgage brokers that will quote 1 to 2% above market rate and hope that you don't go check with someone else. It's your job to be your own advocate, okay? And I want you to know this all translates not just to real estate, why this is important, and I preach this. This translates to other spaces, okay? And I've had this with my friend with the savings account that I told you, but I want to just pick a quick one out of the blue because I bought this coin this week. I've been looking for, a harmonica gold piece, happened to come across it. But here's what I want to tell you. There's a vocabulary in precious metals: spot price, premiums, coins, rounds, bars, markup, melt value, carats. I'll have you know that coin right there, going into that coin, I took a loss. What's the loss? Well, if you know precious metals, you know that you can buy gold as a bar, pay less premium, sell it paying less premium, and make the most for the investment in gold. Why do you buy a coin? Because one, you like it, and that's what you want, so you'll pay a little extra. And two, you hope someday someone's looking for that year or that coin, that it may complete a collection. But overall, I would have been better off just to buy another ounce of gold. But I know the risk, and I wanted that coin. So understanding the difference, and a round, by the way, is just a coin that's not a government. It's made by a private company. Same thing, looks like a coin, but you got to know those things because it's a different value. You also have to understand the cost. When I walked into that dealer, I know that there's a price per ounce of gold, and then I know there's premiums, and they're different premiums on what I'm buying that he's charging me just to buy that gold. So I have to have a plan, okay? And I happen to have a plan because I wanted to unload another piece of gold and he wanted to pick it up. So I was able to barter a discount on the premium because he's a regular person that I do business with. Now, why does that matter? So look at this right here. You look at a collection of gold, and the one at the top is my girlfriend bought a tie bar of gold. But I want you to look at something. In 2021, I bought some gold and it was $1,700 or $1,800 an ounce. When I was in the store, gold had hit $2,048 an ounce. So you look at this and you say, John, you made $200. If you bought that gold at 1,800, you made 200 bucks. What an investment, right? 10%, right? A little bit better. Well, let's look at that. I paid a premium going in. There's a premium coming out. My actual ROI, return on investment, is $48, right? So you look on the left, I made 200. You look on the right, no, you made 48 bucks. You made less than 50% of the increase in gold. Why? Because you need to know your numbers. You need to know your vocabulary. You need to know your deals. Over here, you look like I made 200 bucks, 10%. Over here, right? You're 2.5%. You're less than the rate of inflation. So it's not just real estate that this applies to. Know your numbers, okay? Final thought for you guys, because I don't want to drag all the time here, but most successful people work to obtain success. I follow Dave Ramsey. I don't always, it's like a diet. I don't always go by it, but Dave Ramsey studies, he does millionaire studies. He studied 10,000 millionaires, everyday millionaires. And his studies showed millionaires were not lottery winners. They were not people who inherited significant wealth. There were people who learned skills and applied them over time to achieve millionaire status, okay? Bottom line, people who learn, earn. And people who skip these life lessons and just look to get rich quick and don't care about digging into them, you leave profit on the table for people like me, or even worse, people like Devon to come in and scoop it up, and they're not leaving it on the table, okay? So I just want you to think about that. I know I went kind of fast because we don't have a lot of time, but what I'd like to do now, first I'd like to thank Devon. Thank you for, letting me do this. But I'd also like to say, because I went kind of fast, are there any questions or any things that I can clean up or slides that I can review to help people?
Well, first of all, John, you did an amazing job, right? That presentation is right up there with the best of everyone that I've ever seen given a presentation. And as a matter of fact, I think you've given more detail than most of the presentators that I've been in the room with. The good news is that that level of education that you just received, I can tell you right off the bat that that's a $5,000 cost, $5,000. I don't know what John's educational cost for covering that, but I am certain it's somewhere way beyond 15 grand of information that he assumed over the years in order to distribute it in the manner that he just did. So John, I'm very appreciative of that, and the fact that, you know, we have it all within our group in terms of a collaborative effort in order to get boots on the ground, to get thoughts out there. And if you're interested in doing a deal, you know, come to the club, present your deal. Let's go over the numbers and see exactly how we can get that ball moving. We're not afraid to do deals. People in the club, I know John is doing deals all the time. I'm doing deals all the time, but I'm also building an infrastructure. Now, John showed a map earlier, a puzzle that showcased 401k, that showcased Social Security, that showcased Forex, that showcased precious metal. It showcased a number of designs in there. I know we're talking specifically real estate. There it is. Stocks, insurance, rentals, NFTs. I know we're talking real estate, but at the end of the day, you need to put this puzzle together for yourself. Real estate is just one component of what that puzzle looks like. And there again, think about it. Think about how you're going to tap into all those areas, but you don't have to do it all at once. Take your time, start in real estate. The idea that John presented was starting out with your own primary residence, right? That's one of the strategies my wife and I are using. I'm moving out of my house in December, right? Why? Number one, every 2 years we can buy a new house and move into it. Take advantage of not only the capital gains, but also stacking your assets and tapping into the HELOCs for each asset, right? Which simply, with each revolution of buying, putting your primary residence on rent, you now allow someone else to pay. That doesn't mean you give up the HELOC for that residence. You keep moving the ball forward. So as long as you're occupying your home and you have an asset that you can constantly tap into for the next acquisition, it makes sense. And so I'm going to open up the floor now to any questions that you may have. Catherine, go right ahead. I see you unmuted your mic. Take it away.
Thank you. I just want to say, John, that was an excellent overview. This is something that I've been waiting to hear about. A lot of information, though. It's a lot for me to grasp at one setting, but
Yeah, don't worry about it. It was meant to be an overview, but really what you need to understand is if I was to go through some of these slides, it seems a lot, but you see this slide right here, right? Okay, that's buying the property. This right here, this slide of carrying and this slide of holding are almost exactly the same. And down here, this is just the same 4 slides below. And if you look at these two, carry and hold, the only difference here is I added rental income, vacancy, and maintenance, and I took away the utilities. It's the same information. And if you look over here at the sale and you look at the purchase, it's the same information, just with new prices. So it's really grasping basically the same stuff. But here's what you need to understand too. When you go to a bank and they start talking what's your adjusted gross income and what's your debt to income ratio, and all that means is how much money do you make a month as a gross income? And then how much money they take, say 45 or 50% of that, that has to be what all your debt payments equal. So if you're living in the home, you need to, 45% of your income has to be at least 1674 plus any other car loans you have. That's all they're doing. They're taking the same information and calculating. But one of the things I want you to know, if you can, is the best route to buy your own home, as Devon said. Number one, if you can get into your own house, you have the ability, number one, financially, to live there and not have to pay rent. You can rent rooms. You can rent the home if you move out with a boyfriend or whatever, a girlfriend, wherever you're at. You can refinance for more money if the house goes up in value. You can refinance if the rate goes down. You can pull that cash out, or you can take a home equity line of credit, which is a type of second mortgage, and get money available to you from that. And that money, just so you know, my first property that I bought as a rental, I used a remortgage on my first home because the rates had gone down a little. So I just remortgaged the whole first home instead of a HELOC, took more money out because the home had gone up in value, and used that money to buy my next property. So you have to live somewhere, right? And the other advantage is, as long as you live there, I believe it's a year, but you can double check that with the mortgage company. As long as you move in and live for a year, here's one other advantage. If you live there and you get a low interest rate for buying it, and then after a year you move out and rent it, you're paying a primary rate for a livable home on a rental property. If you did that the other way around, the bank would raise your interest rate because it's an investment property. So the best option is to start with your first house and convert it and try to get as much money going as possible. If somebody wants to do a multifamily, that's even better. They can live in it, but they won't get the same benefit. But the bottom line is, you'll pay a lower interest rate, you'll have a place to live, and you'll have access to capital as you fix, repair, rate change, or money comes in, and you pay it off over time. So it is an advantage to start doing that. You know, if you don't have another place to start, or you're not beyond that. And then the other thing is, you know, I'll post this article right here, but I've yet to find people that can really go by this rule, as you're seeing here. I mean, this is, it's hard to obtain these rules, and here's the calculation to them, and I'll send the link to them. But start here, start with where you're at, okay? You know, Social Security is automatic, but my girlfriend and I both have Roth IRAs, maximum contribution every year. She has a 401k, okay? We have multiple properties. We dropped life insurance this year, or actually we dropped life insurance 2 years ago because our wealth became more than, you know, way more than life insurance policy. So at that point, it was not worth paying it. We both have separate stock accounts that are individual stock accounts, separate from our 401k, separate from our Roth IRA. We both do precious metals. We both do, well, I do NFTs, and all an NFT is non-fungible token. Just think Bitcoin or Ethereum. I dabble with this, but not very much. It's just something I do for fun. But the reason we're in all these spaces is, one, the Roth IRA, that's after tax. So anything comes out of that later when you're 59 and a half, there's no tax on it. 401k, that's before tax. That brings your income down. There's a strategy to each one of these, have a strategy to them. And remember, as I said in the back, there's a vocabulary in each space. There's a cost in each space. There's a benefit in each space. And that's why a plan is so important. That really, it starts with owning a home, because no matter, even if you own a home and can do your next deal for a rental property, that is where you're going to save money, because you have to pay for a place to live. For most people, you don't have a free place to live with friends or family. And also you get the best deals. So if you can get a 1 or 1.5, 2% lower rate, you could save 7 to 30 grand over time on that property, if you take 15 to 30 years to pay it off. You can refinance that property and get money out. You can do the HELOC. There's so many options there. So what you were thinking of doing, a multifamily, is that what you said?
Yeah, and I heard you say that you don't get the same benefits. Can you elaborate on that?
So when you go for a mortgage, and let me just stop sharing that so I can get everybody on the screen. When you take a mortgage on a property, there's things they look at. Number one is, what's your credit? The better your credit, the lower your mortgage rate, the better deals you get. Number two, what are you using the property for? If you're going to live in it and it's your primary residence, you normally get a lower rate. If you're going to use it as an investment property or a second home, there are higher rates, usually different rules, okay? So if you're going to cash out refi, the rates go up. Another little tidbit is, escrowing means you're going to let the bank pay your taxes and insurance. Instead of paying a big payment once a year for taxes or for insurance, you're going to let the mortgage company pay it. They give you usually like a 0.1 reduction in your interest rate. So if it's 2.6, they'll give you 2.5 usually, because it's considered less riskier for them to pay it for you and hold the money than for you. So for me, I do that, and then 2-3 years later, I take it out of escrow and my rate is already locked. But, you know, rental properties and other properties don't really like 15-year mortgages. I know Dave Ramsey preaches them. If you have the money and you can do it, I would do it. We did it on our last investment property. but we went negative. So every month we were putting money into the property, even though it was rented. But at the end, we paid less interest on the mortgage. So we made a lot more money on the property because we were willing to delay that gratification. But here's where your question was. If you do an investment property, there's going to be a whole different set of rules. How much money the bank wants, 20 or 25%. How much interest the bank wants to charge, it'll go up a little, okay? What you have to do for rent, they may not qualify your rent up front. Like normally you get 75% of your gross rent as income to say, look, I'm gonna make this much money, so I need more money to borrow because I'm gonna be making rent. They're very strict about those rules, especially if it's your first property. So you gotta get with a good lender and more than one lender so that you can shop around.
Yeah, whilst you did your whole presentation, I did do 10% on my Forex for gold, by the way.
What's gold at now?
1974.39.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The war, it's kind of doing crazy things. I'll tell you, it was as high as 2048. And just before COVID, when it started to get going, I sunk a lot into physical gold.
Mhm.
But my girlfriend did it even better. She just went to Thailand, bought gold bars. You
Yeah,
know,
no.
she said, I don't want to pay any big premiums.
Yeah, we were shorting it for the whole duration of time. So
Yeah.
we were shorting it from about 2052.
Okay, so that's, yeah, I told her it goes up and from the war, everybody gets panicked and then
Yeah.
it'll come down.
Yeah.
But I think overall, I think it's going to be somewhat, I wouldn't short it too much, but I think it's like Tesla. Remember I told you Tesla was a buy, dump it, and it would come back, and
Yep.
it did.
Yep.
And I just, my alarm for Tesla went off back down under 800 this yesterday, I think.
Mhm.
Because I told my girlfriend, if it drops to 700, they're going to buy it, and then everyone's going to buy it, and then they're going to dump it. So,
but we're closely monitoring it, right? My
Yeah.
positions aren't there forever. And there again, you know, these are the thought patterns for coming to a club like this, meaning you're going to get more than one viewpoint. Real estate is the foundation to most of our hubs because it, as John mentioned, and he explained it so well, it protects us against inflation. Now, there again, I'm big on investing in a portfolio. Real estate is only one sector. The other sectors that we didn't discuss, or we probably will get into for a while, would be buying of a business, and then the passive space, such as trading stocks, bonds, NFTs, and the likes thereof in that space. But there again, as an investor, you need to contemplate being in all of those spaces at the very same time. You want to be your own family office and understand exactly how all three of those spaces connect so that you can manage your own all wealth fund for yourself. So it's my goal that everybody here would be a fund manager to their own portfolio and move the ball forward.
yeah,
Pardon me.
that's a very good point. And my girlfriend, we often, you know, chide each other because my portfolio is way too real estate heavy. You know, we had 3 properties totaling around $1 million with almost no leveraging. And we sold one and we were going to buy another one, but you know, the market's gone kind of crazy. But she's heavily invested in 401k, Roth IRAs, savings, and other things. Whereas I'm heavily invested in real estate. And I always found a comfort that we were different in that way. But I told her, one thing I've done this year was I increased precious metals prior to this year in COVID. I only bought one coin in the last year, 2 years because gold's gone up. But I've been getting back into stocks, you know, dollar cost averaging over time. I'm not a day trader, but the reason why is my portfolio is over 90% real estate. And I don't count my pension because I'm government retired, but what I think is important, she was actually complaining to me that she now no longer has, well, she has real estate out of the country, but she no longer has local real estate. So her portfolio is light real estate where mine's heavy real estate. So we're always ships passing in the night in some respect. But the other thing I want to say is I do have a part-time business on the side as a private investigator, kind of a retirement job. And I do make some income that's worthy enough to be taxed on and to get some tax benefits from. But I actually use that. I don't take as many tax benefits as I could because I use that to fund my Roth IRA. So I'd rather pay a little more tax, but have the funding to go into that. You'll never make as much money as you can on a business if you do it right, because there's so many ways to write off legitimate business expenses for what you do. But even if you don't, you should remember this. If you have an investment property, a Schedule E and a Schedule C for businesses, C, I think, and it's D for investments, E for investment properties, the deductions are almost exactly the same. You know, they're so similar, you get to deduct them. But Catherine, where are you for the buy? Do you have money ready to go for a deal? Do you have deals you're looking for?
I have money from one lender, but I want to explore different lenders to, you know, see which way I want to go. But I have gotten pre-approved for from one lender already. Yeah.
All right, so one thing I'll tell you is one of the lenders once told me, and I'm not a mortgage broker, but she said, if you get pre-approved from multiple mortgage brokers, like 3 in the same 30 days, it counts as one hit on your credit, one inquiry, because they know you're going to comparison shop. The other thing is, if you're targeting buildings, and I don't know where it is where you're at, but where I'm at, for example, the last condo we bought, we didn't FHA the loan, but it was an option because the condo was FHA approved. So certain buildings will be FHA approved, certain communities may not be, certain lenders may be better at it, certain lenders may be worse, but we went in with 3 lenders. We've dropped down to 2 lenders. We've used 2 out of the 3. One is FBC Bank, and it's Home Loans Today who funds through them, and they're one of the biggest lenders in Florida. And then we chose Mortgage Firm, which is one of the most well-known lenders in this area. And I wrote 4 mortgages with Home Loans FBC and 1 mortgage with Mortgage Firm. And what we found out was when Home Loans Today, who had done a lot of mortgages, that did some great things for me and discounts as a repeat customer, they did not want to mortgage smaller properties, condos, smaller loans, and we only needed like 70, 80 grand. So we went to the Mortgage Firm and they wanted the loan, so they did it for us. So having 2 mortgage brokers not only allowed us to compete on the rate and get a matching low rate, but we were able to find funding when maybe one company didn't want to fund on a smaller condo and the other one would. So having a couple lenders in a relationship like that is really important. It lets you bargain the rate, it lets you bargain the property, and it also gets you learning about what you're dealing with for the property. One thing I would recommend is maybe just get some kind of a sheet. You could email it to me or to Devon, and we could put it on the screen with your numbers, even if it's handwritten, take a picture of it. And the group could just look at your numbers and give you some feedback.
Numbers on what?
On how much a property would cost, any of the things that we, like what your down payment would be by percentage, what your closing costs are, maybe even pictures of the property if you have them online or something. And you don't have to devote, the address or anything. But if you have any questions, I would suggest using real numbers on a potential property. So if you saw, I showed you a property on my screen and I showed you how much it costs, and I showed you, what we were looking at for actual values. I don't know, you don't have to give up the address if you don't want to, but what I did by showing you the property and showing you the numbers, we were working with real numbers, and that was what that townhome sold for, by the way.
Yeah, I'm in a rental right now and my lease is up at the end of May. But it's kind of frustrating because of the market. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. And oh my goodness, it's it's not good. But I just want to make sure I don't do something stupid and buy a property that is just way, like you're saying, they're outbidding, they're going up hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yeah, I just need to make sure I go in now with knowledge of these numbers.
Yeah, but you know what? One thing that I like is the townhome that I showed you. We had looked at it a few times in the past, and people in Florida are crazy about their cars. There's car washes everywhere here, and especially these engineers and these higher paid people. Like I have a condo with a garage, and the guy's like, oh, I have 2 sports cars and one needs to be garage. Like, it's a big deal. And so we know as a rental, that's a big deal, especially 2 bedrooms and the driveway. But when I did those numbers, and I just want to throw them on the screen one more time real quick. I know I'm running you late on the thing, Devon. I'm sorry about that, but I just want to show this one more time. So I want to show you, this is why I think this is so important, by the way. So this is actually the townhome. This is a picture, you know, of the townhome that we were talking about. 262.5 was the actual price. These are actual numbers that I took from either MLS or the listing through MLS or realtor.com or Zillow. And the comps came from MLS. Now, what does this tell me? These numbers here and these numbers here. So just so you know, we missed this one, but another one came on the market, right? I think it was around 265. So once I've done these numbers and I made a spreadsheet for this, I can just go in and change that to 265 and all the other numbers will update for me. But the point is, if I look at this right now and I look at a 5-pound average inflation and I look at this numbers, I know I can make 10% on this property. If my girlfriend said to me tomorrow, you know what, I want to do it, we would go buy it because I know there's money, there's fruit on the tree, and I know it's manageable. So could there be surprises? Yes, but doing this dry run has set me up that if I miss this opportunity and I study the market, I know where I'm at to jump on it if it comes up again, or a similar property comes up again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're saying like at the end, all of those numbers auto-populate together to bring you that final number?
Yeah,
Is that
well, I made a spreadsheet just for it. So if I go in and put actual insurance, or I go in and put actual tax, like I pulled tax records to get the insurance on a non-homesteaded property. I went pretty thorough on it, but we're actually probably more around 12% because I actually was very cautious on my numbers. Maybe even 14% on the deal.
awesome?
But here's what I'll tell you. If you dry run a property you want to buy, it, you know, for other people to be like, oh my God, that feels like work and I have to sit down and study it. I'm not buying it, but you will benefit from that. You know, you will benefit from it. So, because you'll know the numbers and you'll know right away. If you can make a spreadsheet, that's even better. I think Devon's got actual spreadsheet access that he can do this on a computer without doing all that. But my point is, if you do all that.
Yeah, we'll do more like this as well. I think this is a great exercise. And this is the foundation of whether you're going to buy or sell.
And if you get comfortable with it, you'll be able to know when you see deals, you'll be able to know, you'll just know what it fits. And you can go read that article. I'm going to post that article real quick here.
Yeah, well, that.
But that article, I've never come across properties that didn't need major work to meet most of these rules, especially in the market area here. And I'm in the second or third most moved to area in Florida, according to whoever, but you know. So there's the article posted in the chat section for those of you that want to read it. And that tells you how to calculate all those other rules, but good luck trying to find properties that fit it. But anyway, the reason why I say the numbers is if you just take the numbers for gold, or you take the number for stocks, or you take the number for Forex, I guarantee you there's a fee or some kind of a fee you're paying either through loan margin or transactional fees on your investment. And the first thing I'd recommend to you is start out with a plan of where you're at, how much money you want to save, and what your first investment should be. Because the power of focus, you can do the others a little bit here and there. But, you know, for me, the power of focus was in real estate. I'm now transitioning to stocks. My girlfriend is opening up more to real estate. You know, but the power of focus will bring you a long way. And by the way, what you learn in each of these spaces will commute in general theory to understanding the other investments. All right, I've run off enough here, Devon. Sorry about that.
No, man, you run off on some good stuff. We couldn't negate that. You know, there again, John, thank you so much. Are there any other question? Mr. Bachelor, and I know you're just starting. Any of this new to you?
No, this is this presentation, give me 1 second, I apologize.
Innovative therapies you may not find anywhere else in the world, including those that are is one.
I was thinking, oh my gosh, I would have loved for my family to have heard John's breakdown and the way, he goes about his thought process of real estate investing. My family isn't new to real estate investing. In fact, they're they're looking for, if not other real estate to invest in, but other businesses to invest in. And I would have loved to have just, invited them to this session. I've been I've been to one of your other sessions before and listened to you speak, and it's been very educational. So I just hope that there'll be another opportunity for them to possibly listen to your breakdown, because I think they would gain from it.
Well, welcome them to the club. Just send them the Zoom link. And, did you come through Meetup or did you come through a Zoom Connect?
Through Meetup,
Okay.
yeah, and forgive me, I'm not sure what the title was, but it was grabbing enough for me to be here.
All right, let me put the Zoom link into.
Yeah, you might also want to do a spreadsheet just for the property you're in, or they might want to do it just to see where they're at, so they can track their costs and they can track, a lot of people use the gross rent multiplier or 10-year rent, but really it's about the numbers you set for yourself and the goals you set for yourself. And you never know what the market's going to do, but if you start tracking it and you're seeing what you're making and you see the numbers, you might find out when you're making more or less or more, and what you want, and you can take it from there. But it's not bad to track it as practice if you're planning on doing a project too.
I just put the Zoom link in the chat box. Copy and paste that in, and we'll see you every Sunday at 7 to 8 o'clock.
Really, really good job, John. I thought it was very organized. The colors were great.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I just hope if we could grow the group, people bring some numbers to the deal, or idea. You can even bring an idea of what you're looking at doing. I've got an interest in precious metals, but I trade physically while Devon trades Forex. But that's just because I happen to like metals. But to give you a quick story, my girlfriend, she looks at gold and she wanted some gold just to have it. And she's like, I'm waiting till I go to Asia. I'm buying just Asian bars. I only want 2. I'm putting them in the safe. I'm never dealing with gold again. Call me in 30 years. That's how she looked at it. Like, she just wanted to check the box and be done with it. And she bought better than me. She bought later than me. And she made almost probably 140% of the return I made in half the time, because she's like, I don't care. So, it depends on your level of what you're interested with when you build your portfolio.
But for us, it always comes to really collaborating and cohabitating with others that push us. And for the most part, I'm having a lot more fun in this space now because I'm finding a lot more people to talk to, right? And it's no longer me isolated in the office, crunching the numbers myself or negotiating the deals, or so at this stage of the game, I find it to be pleasurable, because at the end of the day, the whole idea is you want to have some type of contribution as a gift back to changing others' lives. And I think that's what we're doing here. So if we can depart even some knowledge in any capacity, and it helps, then the job for this club, as collaborative as it is, the goals for the club would have been met. So I'm not going to take up any more of anybody's time, but this show has been a wonderful show today. John, you've done an amazing job. I can't wait to see what some of the other spreadsheets are going to look like, right? And I'm talking about the ones in Dealio Pro once we're finished connecting the dots there. And I'll do a presentation on that as well as soon as we finish connecting all of the switches up. But I think we're almost a week away from that.
Thank you. Do they have qualifying spreadsheets like the AGI, DTI stuff for people looking to finance?
No, but we do have a back office to whereby I can access that information, and it will give you all the financing details for whether you want to refi or, you know, buy and hold or something along those lines. So even cash outs, right? So they'll give you all of the financing numbers, and we can just plug and play those because they're giving me access to their back office, which generates that naturally.
Okay, I just want, for the first time people, I want them to know where they're at for down payments, closing costs.
Mhm.
And, you know, we can also do rehab later if that has a rehab budget on it. Because every single project, by the way, guys, is different, everything.
Mhm, mhm. Oh, and with the software that we're getting, you'll also have the advantage to do wholesaling and flip it out to other investors. There's a group of investors inside the Dealio network that if you find a deal that matches their criteria, if you can put it on the contract and then flip it out to them. But that's a whole other segment. Gentlemen, ladies, it's been a pleasure. It's been a wonderful Sunday. I can't wait to see you guys again for next week when we will have other topics to talk about, as well as exploring the ideas of real estate in its fullest. Thank you so much all, and I'll see you next week.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Devon. Thank you, John. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
All right.